Hello and welcome to the Unit 6 Section 5 video on elimination with multiplication. So in the last section we talked about how to use elimination, and it works really well because one of the variables is able to go away very quickly. But what if we want to use elimination and we don't have the same number in front of those variables? Well, then we have to multiply one of the two equations. Sometimes we have to multiply both of the equations. So let's see what that looks like. We are going to use a factor to do this. And let's start with this example, example 1. So I've got a negative 12x here, and I have a 6x here. If I want this to look like 12x, I can multiply this entire equation by 2. And if I do that, the first equation is still going to be negative 12x minus 10y is equal to 10. My second equation becomes 12x plus 8y is equal to negative 20. So now I've got x's that I can cancel by simply adding. And I have a problem like I had in the last section. So negative 10y plus 8y is going to give me negative 2y. 10 minus 20 is going to give me negative 10. Divide each side by negative 2. And you get y is equal to 5. Now I'm going to plug back into one of these two equations. Let's just plug into the second one. 6x plus 4 times 5 is equal to negative 10. So 6x plus 20 is negative 10. Subtract 20 from each side, and you're going to get 6x is equal to negative 30. Divide each side by 6, and you get x is negative 5. And so our answer is negative 5, 5. All right, let's take a look at number 2. Well, you notice number 2, we don't really have anything that we can multiply one or the other by and it come out nice. So we're going to have to multiply both. So let's get a common factor. Let's work with the y's here. We know that if we multiply the top one by 3, that will give us 21y here. And if we multiply the bottom one by 7, that's going to give us 21y here. So the top equation becomes 30x minus 21y equals 6. The bottom equation becomes 7 times 8, negative 56x, plus 21y is equal to 7 times 14, which is 98. Now we can add the two equations. Okay, and I'm going to move this over. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add these things. So negative 56 plus 30 is going to give us negative 26x. The y's cancel. And then 6 plus 98 is going to give us 104. Now if we divide each side by negative 26, that's going to give us negative 4. So x is equal to negative 4. Now let's plug negative 4 back in for x. Let's do that on the top one. 10 times negative 4 minus 7y is equal to 2. So that gives us negative 40 minus 7y is equal to 2. Add 40 to each side, and you're going to get negative 7y is equal to 42. Divide by negative 7, and that's going to give you y equals negative 6. So our answer is negative 4, negative 6. On the next problem, we can multiply either the top by 2 or the bottom by 2. It depends on if you want to work with x's or y's. Let's do the bottom one by 2. So that's going to give us 4x minus 2y is equal to negative 22. And we're going to stack the one that we multiplied. 4x minus 8y is equal to 16 times 2, that's 32. So now we're going to subtract these to get the 4x's to go away. Negative 2y plus 8y is going to give us 6y. Negative 22 minus another 32 is going to give us negative 54. And negative 54 divided by 6 is going to give us negative 9. Okay? Now, let's go to one of these two equations and plug it back in. So let's do it on the top one. 4x minus 2 times negative 9 equals negative 22. 4x plus 18 equals negative 22. Subtract 18 from both sides, and that gives us 4x is equal to, see, that is going to be negative 40. And divide each side by 4, and you have x is equal to negative 10. So our answer is negative 10, negative 9. All right, example 4 here. We have two equations here, but we cannot multiply one of them. We have to multiply both. So let's just do this a simple way and multiply the top one by 5 and the bottom one by 6. The reason I do it this way is because I want to cancel my x's. So I'm just taking the 5 here, multiply it there, take the 6 there, multiply the bottom one by that. So the top one is going to become negative 30x plus 60y equals 60. The bottom one is going to become 30x minus 60y is equal to negative 60. And if we add these two equations, the x's cancel, the y's cancel, the 60's cancel. We end up with 0 equals 0. That is a true statement. So we have infinite solutions. All right, so now let's do a few more examples just so that we have the swing of things. All right, so for number 1 on this second page, what factor would you need to multiply the first equation by to eliminate the y variable? So if we want to eliminate the y, we are going to multiply this by 4 so that we end up with 8y in the top as well. So let's go ahead and do that. We end up with 12x plus 8y is equal to 8. On the bottom, we still have negative 6x plus 8y is equal to negative 28. And you're going to end up subtracting these two. So 12 plus 6, that gives me 18x. And that's going to be equal to 36. Divide each side by 18. And that is going to give you x is equal to 2. Now you just got to plug it back into one of the originals. So let's do it into the first one. 3 times 2 plus 2y equals 2. 6 plus 2y equals 2. Subtract 6 from each side. You get 2y is equal to negative 4. Divide each side by 2, and you have y is equal to negative 2. So our answer is 2, negative 2. All right, for this second one, we are going to do like we did on the front page. Let's multiply this top one by 6 and this bottom one by 5. So we get negative 30x minus 24y is equal to negative 48. On the bottom, we get 30x plus 25y is equal to 50. And if we add them to get the x's to cancel, negative 24 plus 25 is going to give us y. Negative 48 plus 50 is going to give us 2. So y equals 2. So let's plug it into the second one. 6x plus 5 times 2 is equal to 10. So we have 6x plus 10 equals 10. If you subtract 10 from both sides, you end up getting 6x is equal to 0. Divide each side by 6, and x is indeed 0. So our answer is 0, 2. All right, moving on to number 3. So for this one, again, we're going to have to multiply the top and the bottom. So let's think a little bit about how we're going to do this. What we could do is we could multiply the top by 12 and the bottom by 10. Okay, so that's going to give us 120x minus 12 times 25, which is going to give us 300. Y is equal to 11 times 12, which is 132. On the bottom, we have 120x. 10 times 30 is going to give us 300. 10 times 6 is going to give us 60. Now, if we subtract them, I think you can see where this is going. We get 0 on this side, and we get 72 on the other side. That is not a true statement. So, we have no solution. All right, so on number 4, they ask, how are we going to eliminate the x? Well, let's multiply the top one by 3. And if we do that, we get 15x. Let me give myself a little bit more space. 15x minus 9y is equal to negative 12. On the bottom, we have negative 15x plus 10y is equal to 10. That one didn't change. And we're going to add these equations. So the x's go away. Negative 9 plus 10, that gives me y. And then negative 12 plus 10, that's going to give me negative 2. And so y is negative 2. Let's plug that into the top one to find out what x is. So 5x minus 3 times negative 2 equals negative 4. So that's 5x plus 6 equals negative 4. Subtract 6 from both sides. You get 5x equals negative 10. Divide each side by 5. And you have x is equal to negative 2. So our answer is negative 2, negative 2. All right, for number 5, let's multiply the bottom one by 2. So the top equation stays the same, negative 8x plus 10y equals negative 28. The bottom one becomes negative 8x minus 4y equals 0. And we're going to subtract these equations to cancel the x's. So 10 plus 14, or plus 4 is 14. And then negative 28 is what we have on this side. Divide each side by 14, and you're going to get y is equal to negative 2. Let's plug that into the top one. Or actually, let's plug it into the bottom one. Negative 4x minus 2 times negative 2 is 0. So negative 4x plus 4 is equal to 0. Subtract the 4 from each side, and you've got negative 4x is equal to negative 4. Divide each side by negative 4, and we've got x is equal to 1. So we have 1, negative 2. And then finally, the last problem. Let's work with the y's. Let's multiply the top one by 8, and let's multiply the bottom one by, actually, we don't even have to do that, because what is a number that 6 and 8 both go into that's smaller? How about 24? We can multiply the top one by 4, and we can multiply the bottom one by 3, and that would give us 24 on both of our y's. So 4 times negative 12 is going to give us negative 48x. 4 times 6, that's going to give us 24. And then 4 times 12 again is 48. On the bottom, 3 times negative 16 is going to give us negative 48. We have plus 24y, and then 3 times 16 is also 48. If we subtract the two equations, we end up with 0 equals 0. So this one is infinite solutions. All right, so that finishes off the two sections that we have on elimination. Sometimes you can just add or subtract the equations. Sometimes you have to multiply by a factor to be able to add or subtract the equations and get something to eliminate. We're going to wrap up this section in the next, or this unit in the next section, and that is applying some of these systems to real-world situations. And we're going to do some word problems.